Howdy lovelies, and welcome to a new episode of Real Nightmares where we compare fact from fiction and your favorite horror media. Now, I'm Katie Adkins, or Heart Scale, and today's episode is going to be a little different. We're covering my favorite slasher of the summer, T. West's MaXXXine. So what makes this episode a little different from the others is that I'm not going to be going as in-depth on the movie plot because it's still in theaters, and you should definitely go see it. And once it's no longer in theaters, it'll hit HBO Max this November 2024. MaXXXine is the third installation in the X Pearl trilogy, completing the story. I highly recommend you watch X and then Pearl before watching MaXXXine, or you can watch it all on your own. You can raw dog it, I don't know. Do what you want, don't listen to me. You don't need me telling you what to do. But I do recommend you at least watch X beforehand if you decide you want to skip Pearl, but I think you should watch all three. I promise you will not be disappointed. Each one is an homage to the media that existed during its plot era. The dark, sexy, and ominous slasher vibes of the 1970s in X, the fun lightheartedness of the exciting brand new silver screen in 1918 in Pearl, and finally the campy, vibrant, and gory fun of the 1980s in MaXXXine. These are all original works of fiction, and none of them are based on a true story. So you might be wondering why I've decided to cover MaXXXine. Well, they decided to include a real serial killer in its plotline.
The Night Stalker.
Night Stalker.
Night Stalker.
Is terrorizing Los Angeles.
Now, I'm not one who enjoys spoiling a movie while it's still out in theaters, so I'm not going to tell you the whole plot line, but here's what I will tell you. After the traumatic events MaXXXine Mink survived in X, she moves to Los Angeles where she makes a name for herself in the adult video industry. Battling stereotypes, hypocrisy, and sexism in Hollywood, she works hard trying to break into mainstream show business, hoping to jumpstart her serious acting career with a B-level horror movie. The Puritan, too! But the Night Stalker is on the loose. Everyone in town is on their toes, hoping to not be his next victim. MaXXXine, meanwhile, walks a fine line between feeling invincible after surviving the events in X, as well as battling her PTSD from the same events. She, with the help of her doting agent, do their best to overcome all demons that plague her and threaten the life she believes she was born to live. However, during a time of such chaos and uncertainty, it looks like someone more sinister has bigger plans for MaXXXine. While the movie warns the audience about the Night Stalker throughout the movie as a looming, threatening, constant presence, it doesn't go into detail about the Night Stalker's full story. So buckle up and let's learn about the man who terrorized Los Angeles from 1984 to 1985. Richard Leva Munoz Ramirez, aka Richard Ramirez, a leap year baby born February 29, 1960 in El Paso, Texas. His family were Mexican immigrants and his father worked on the railways to make a living. Richard was the youngest of 5 siblings who all suffered physical abuse from their father. The abuse and neglect was severe enough that Richard was knocked unconscious and almost died on multiple occasions as a child. Future psychiatrists believe this caused him to develop temporal lobe epilepsy, aggressive behavior, and hypersexuality. In 5th grade, he started experiencing seizures and was diagnosed. And if you've seen my Exorcism of Emily Rose video, you'll know temporal lobe epilepsy also has symptoms that include Geschwine syndrome, pronounced as Geschwine syndrome, a characteristic behavioral syndrome frequently described in patients affected by temporal lobe epilepsy. Geschwine syndrome includes 5 primary changes: hypergraphia, hyperreligiosity, hyposexuality, irritability, and circumstantiality. I don't really know the science behind the disorder itself. I don't know how a disorder makes you super religious, so don't ask me those details. Go ask a medical professional. I'm just a girl on YouTube who did some research and wants to talk about it. When Ramirez was 12, his older cousin Miguel Angel Valles, aka Mike, came home from 2 tours in Vietnam and was celebrated as a war hero. However, Mike had many war crimes in Vietnam that he bragged about, and he shared Polaroid pictures with Ramirez displaying women tied to trees after he had sexually assaulted, murdered, and mutilated them. I guess those are just the photos they pass around at Christmas. Ramirez idolized his cousin and wanted to grow up to be just like him. And he found these photos really interesting and not horrifying at all. He just thought they were really neat. Ramirez also stated that Mike taught him military stealth and kill tactics. It was around this time that Ramirez started running away from home and sleeping in a local cemetery to avoid his father's violent rage. When his father found out, he tied Ramirez to a crucifix in a cemetery and left him overnight as punishment. In 1974, Ramirez, now 14, started doing lots of LSD. You know, because I'm sure that was incredibly healthy, a very healthy choice. A young boy of his specific upbringing, not a bad idea at all. This is when friends of his started noticing a huge shift in his behavior and he started getting into trouble.
I think what really messed him up was the acid. He would do a lot of acid.
He developed an interest in the occult and more specifically Satanism and read books by Anton LaVey, the author of the Satanic Bible and the Satanic Rituals. In 1975, when Ramirez was 15, he witnessed his cousin Mike shooting and killing his second wife Jessie Valles in the face during an argument. Ramirez says witnessing this event just really solidified his interest in wanting to murder people. Cool. Mike was found not guilty by reason of insanity and PTSD from his military service. During all of this, Ramirez dropped out of school and after the shooting moved in with his sister Ruth, only to find out her husband Roberto is a creepy peeping Tom who would take Ramirez on his little peeping Tom excursions. Just some boy bonding time, you know, nothing creepy or disgusting. What's going on in El Paso? What's going on in El Paso? Because I went to El Paso once. Really good food. We picked up some taquitos. They were very good. Besides that, what's going on there? He took a job working at a Holiday Inn and got hold of a master key to rob people's rooms. One day, he hid in a patron's closet while she was in the bathroom, and he jumped out and attempted to sexually assault her, but luckily was caught by her husband, who promptly beat the shit out of him, as he should have. Criminal charges were dropped because the couple did not want to come back to Texas to testify. And then in 1982, when he was 22 years old, he moved to California. His first documented murder was April 1984 in San Francisco. He lured 9-year-old May Linda Leong. I'm still in focus, right? Like, I'm still the star of the show. We're gonna move forward because I would just rather be in focus. You know, no one notices the bad toning in my hair until it's on camera. And these lights just really capture it. I really should have toned this before Whatever. He lured 9-year-old May Linda Leong in the basement of her apartment building, helping her look for a lost $1 bill where he beat, strangled, and sexually assaulted her before killing her with a switchblade and hung her body by her shirt on a pipe. No one knew who did this murder until 2009 when they matched Ramirez's DNA to crime scene evidence. 2 months later in June, he moved to Los Angeles and killed 79-year-old Jenny Vincow. She had multiple stab wounds in her head, neck, and chest, and her throat was slashed so deep that she was nearly decapitated in her own bed. Next was 22-year-old Maria Hernandez in March 1985, shot in the face with a handgun after she had pulled into her garage. However, she survived miraculously because she dangled her keys in front of her face and the bullet freaking ricocheted off of the key and she just played dead until he left. What a crazy miracle happenstance. I've never heard of that happening. That's just oh my God. Her roommate unfortunately did not have the same amount of luck because when he walked inside of their house, Dale Yoshi Okazaki was shot directly in the head and instantly died. Within an hour of these attacks, he pulled 30-year-old Cy Leon Veronica Yu out of her car and shot her twice. These back-to-back attacks caused a frenzy in the media. And with Maria Hernandez surviving, she was able to give the police a description: curly hair, bulging eyes, rotten teeth. The media at this time dubbed him the walk-in killer or the Valley Intruder. We're getting really close because I'm just not risking being out of focus. That's so annoying. You'll have to check out my boobs on Instagram. I fucking guess. We're gonna be face to face now because I am sick and tired of the camera focusing on this mic and not my beautiful face. I work so hard on my makeup. Look at me cosplaying MaXXXine. I don't have blue. I don't have brown contacts in, but she also never wore this outfit, so. But I feel like she would. I feel like she would wear this outfit, you know? This is how much you can see this outfit. I just feel like MaXXXine would totally wear, she would totally wear this outfit. Maybe add some gloves. Let's get back to it. Which the walk-in killer and the valley intruder are just incredibly lame nicknames, by the way. Come on, the walk-in killer? It sounds like he's killing you in the walk-in at a restaurant. Like, it sounds like he's in the kitchen, and when a waitress goes into a walk-in to cry, he kills you. Because, I mean, who hasn't cried in a walk-in if you've ever worked at a restaurant? 1 week later, he robbed and killed 64-year-old Vincent Charles Zazzara as he was asleep in his bed. Vincent's wife, 44-year-old MaXXXine Zazzara, woke up from the gunshot. Ramirez beat her, tied her up before destroying the room looking for valuables. During that time, MaXXXine got free and grabbed the shotgun under the bed, which she unfortunately did not know was unloaded. Because unfortunately, that is the safest way to store a gun. So she clicked the shotgun, nothing happened, and he shot her 3 times and she died. But he didn't stop there. He cut an inverted cross in her chest and then gouged out her eyeballs and put her eyeballs in her jewelry box, and then proceeded to attempt to get freaky with her body. But he was experiencing erectile dysfunction. Oh no, wonder why. And he decided to just keep the jewelry box with her eyeballs in it as a trophy. And this particular interaction is so weird because he doesn't really have any others like it where he keeps trophies like this that I'm aware of, that I saw in my research. This is the only trophy I saw documented. He left footprints from his Avia sneakers in the flower bed, and the bullets matched the previous crimes. It was this attack that tipped the police that they have a serial killer on their hands. The media started referring to him as
The Night Stalker.
Then he robbed and assaulted 66-year-old and 56-year-old Bill and Lillian Doy. 2 weeks after that, he stole a car and broke into Mabel Ma Bell and Florence Nettie Lang's home. Using a hammer, he bludgeoned them, tied them both up, and used an electrical cord to shock them. After sexually assaulting Lang, he took her lipstick and drew a satanic pentagram on her thigh and then on their bedroom walls. The women initially survived but weren't found for 2 days. They were comatose and critically injured. They both died from their injuries later that year. July 2nd, he broke into 75-year-old Mary Louise Cannon's home where he bludgeoned her with a lamp and stabbed her to death with a butter knife. July 5th, he broke into a home that housed 16-year-old Whitney Bennett, where he bludgeoned her with a tire iron before trying to strangle her with a telephone cord. Much to his surprise, he saw sparks emanate from the telephone cord and she started breathing, and he just fled the scene because he believed that this was Jesus intervening and saving her life. He believed that divine intervention chose to save this girl, so he left, and she survived. 2 days later, on July 7th, he broke into 70-year-old Joyce Louise Nelson's home and stomped on her face until she died. And he left his Avia sneaker shoe print on her face, which matched the shoe print from the flower beds. And the police could continue to confirm that this was all the same person, because unfortunately, he was very, very good at getting rid of his fingerprints. That same night, he robbed 63-year-old Sophie Dickman. He assaulted her and demanded to know where her valuables were, and he made her swear to Satan that she wasn't lying and that he had found all of her valuables. She did, and he fled the scene. 2 weeks later, on July 20th, he decided he wanted to invest in a machete and bought a machete. And you can probably guess what he did with said machete. He broke into 66 and 68-year-olds Layla and Maxon Needing's home, where you could probably guess killed them with a machete, as well as mutilating them with a machete. That same night, he shot and killed 32-year-old Chanarong Kovaneth, killing him instantly, and then repeatedly assaulted his wife, Somkid. He tied her and her 8-year-old up, dragging her around, demanding where the valuables were, and he made her swear to Satan that he had found all of the valuables. She did, and he fled the scene, leaving her and her son alive. August 6th, he shot Chris and Virginia Peterson. They fought off Ramirez and he fled. They both survived. 2 days later, he did the same routine: kill husband, tie up wife and kid, assault wife, drag wife around and steal jewelry, make her swear to Satan, and then dip. And at this point, LA was looking too passé for Ramirez. Now, he decided he wanted to move on and go back to San Francisco. Too much media coverage, you know? August 18th, he entered the home and killed 66-year-old Peter Pan, and then beat and assaulted his wife, Barbara Pan, before shooting her. He used lipstick again to draw a pentagram on the bedroom wall, but this time along with the phrase, "Jack the Knife," leaving again the same Avia shoe print. Now, this is where the mayor of San Francisco kind of sort of ruined everything. The police had kept the info about the shoe prints a secret since they knew Ramirez had to have been watching the press. And Mayor Dianne Feinstein stated in a press conference, "The shoe evidence." "You ruined everything, you stupid bitch." She outed the shoe print evidence and the bullet casings. So he knew to maybe switch up his ammunition, and he immediately threw his shoes over the Golden Gate Bridge and is now continuing on his murder spree barefoot. Now, barefoot, he decided he didn't like San Fran and decided to come back to Los Angeles. So once he returned to LA, he broke into the home of Bill Carnes, shot him in the face, introduced himself to Bill's fiancée, Inez Erickson, identifying himself as the Night Stalker like some sort of Batman villain. He tied her up, beat her up, robbed her, assaulted her, and then just like in a Batman villain-esque way, told her, "Tell them the Night Stalker was here." "I'm sorry, sir, are you the Riddler?"
"But you can call me
the Night Stalker."
Before he fled into the night. Ramirez also paid a visit to the Romero residence, but 13-year-old James Romero was awake and in his garage working on his bike, and he heard some rustling in the bushes, thought that was weird, closed the garage, went inside, and from his window saw, Richard Ramirez walking around their house, and the kid was like, "Oh my god, this guy is trying to break into our house." So he goes and wakes his parents up, and they're like, "Oh my god, a guy's trying to break into our house." So they call the police, and Ramirez flees. But not before this kid, James, memorizes his color, make, model, and part of the license plate of his car. And they find that car abandoned in Koreatown. And they searched that car high and low for prints, and they found exactly one print. And that print finally identified who they were looking for as Richard Ramirez. He was already in the system because he had been arrested for some traffic violations as well as drug violations. So they used a couple years old mugshot, and he instantly became the most famous person in LA for that 24 hours. And interestingly enough, this is the one time Ramirez did not watch the news. When they posted that up on every single news station you could think of and plastered his face on every single newspaper, he was on a bus to visit his brother in Arizona. Once he got there, his brother wasn't home, so he was like, "Oh, okay," and got on the bus all the way back to LA before just going to sleep without checking anything. And he wakes up the next morning, still having no idea everybody knows exactly who he is and what he looks like. And he, walks by the police waiting for him at a bus station, which I think is hilarious that the police were waiting for him, knew what he looked like and his name, and still missed him. They still missed him. But Ramirez walks into like a 7-Eleven, basically. That's when he notices these women staring at him and whispering to each other, and he notices people looking at him, and he's like, "What?" And he looks down at a newspaper, and there's his face. It's right there. And he goes, "Oh, and he runs out into the street like a maniac, right? Broad daylight, early morning. He runs into the street, tries to break into a car. These two dudes who see him just drag him by the collar out of the car, and then he breaks free and Ramirez runs across the other way like some freaking rodeo clown to the other side of the street, tries to steal this girl's keys. Well, her husband is there, and he hits Ramirez on the head with a fence post. And Ramirez just starts running, and basically the whole neighborhood just started gathering together and just running down the street, hunting and chasing this man until they all finally caught up with him, and they just beat the shit out of him. No one calls the police. This is a citizen's arrest. They just beat the crap out of him. So good. It's so good. You want to know why the police got called? You want to know why the police got called? The police got called because someone called about a disturbance. They were like, I think a fight broke out. Can you come check it out? Like, there's a disturbance. Like, it looks pretty intense. So the police show up to break up a disturbance to find Richard Ramirez beat to a freaking pulp, and they arrest him. That is how Richard Ramirez finally got arrested. The citizens of Los Angeles got together to make it happen. So on August 31st, 1985, ends the reign of terror of the Night Stalker. While incarcerated, he developed many fans, a lot of them girls, and I've always thought this is super weird. Like, as a true crime girly,
I just wanted to see what he looked like. I think he's cute.
I understand the fascination with true crime. I mean, look at this channel that I have, but to have a crush on them or think you're in love with them is so gross and weird, and I don't get it. But a lot of women thought that they were like in love with him or thought they had a crush on him or something.
He's a nice person because I've met him and I know.
He's convicted of 13 murders.
What murder?
And Doreen Leoy was one of them. She wrote him 75 letters while he was incarcerated. And in 1988, before his trial, because of course he was incarcerated for 3 whole years before his trial, he proposed to her and they got engaged. So like I said, his trial began in 1988, 3 years later in July. During his first court appearance, he raised a hand with a pentagram drawn on it and yelled,
Hail Satan.
and in a crazy coincidence, tragically, on August 14th, 1988, juror Phyllis Singletary did not show up to court. She was found shot dead in her apartment. The jury, now terrified that Ramirez somehow orchestrated her death, were freaking the f*** out. It was later revealed that he had nothing to do with it. Singletary was a victim of a murder-suicide by her boyfriend. The alternate juror, however, who took her place, was so shaken by the experience that she refused to go home during the entire trial. On September 20th, 1989, Richard Ramirez was convicted of all 43 charges, 14 burglaries, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 13 counts of murder. He was sentenced to death penalty by the gas chamber. When he received his sentence, he said,
Big deal. That's always went with the territory. I'll see you in Disneyland.
while I don't understand how death row and the death penalty works as far as bureaucracy, I don't understand how the system allowed this man to live for another 25 years. Because he lived for 25 years and he never saw the death penalty. No. He died of cancer. Why? Just throw him in the gas chamber. Like, what are you waiting for? Like, can like a lawyer or like a paralegal or like somebody in the comments explain this to me? Because I don't understand how you can take someone with such intense media coverage, who everybody knows, who everyone is just horrified about, and not immediately have them live out their sentence. Like, play out their sentence, whatever the term is for going through with their sentence of the death penalty.
I will be avenged. Lucifer dwells within us all.
Like, why did he live another 25 years? Why did our tax dollars pay to feed him for 25 years? Why? But during that 25 years, he got married to that woman, Doreen Leoy, and then I guess they broke up at some point because right before he died, he got engaged to a girl named Christine Lee. However, I will say finding proof of that is really, really hard to find. You cannot find Christine Lee online. Maybe she's just really embarrassed about it, but she was supposedly 23 when they got engaged, which means she was born in 1990, which means she wasn't even alive during his crimes or anything when he had news coverage. But yeah. So if you've already seen MaXXXine, then you can definitely see now how the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, definitely inspired this film. There are a couple coincidences that stand out to me that I'm not sure were intentional in the film or just pure coincidence. Number one being the fact that one of Ramirez's victims is named MaXXXine. I don't think X, Pearl, and MaXXXine were all written at the same time. If they were all written at the same time, it is possible that somehow the victims of the Night Stalker inspired the character MaXXXine a little bit. I'm not sure, I don't think so. It also is strange to me how that particular murder of MaXXXine Zazzara stood out on its own too. She was the first murder linked to being part of some sort of satanic ritual, as well as the only one where he stole her eyeballs and kept them in a jewelry box. In a sick, twisted way, it felt like her murder was sentimental to him. Another detail that I noticed is that the movie MaXXXine was released on July 5th, which is the anniversary of the attempted murder of Whitney Bennett, the young girl he let go because he believed divine intervention got in the way. He saw the sparks from the telephone cable around her neck and decided that Jesus had intervened and decided to save her life. And the idea of divine intervention is definitely a theme in the movie MaXXXine. This, in addition to the unique outlier of the murder of Maxine Zazara, I just kind of can't help but feel like the writers had definitely done their research before writing this film. I think the themes that exist in MaXXXine are also very much related to and attached to these attacks and murders. I know this video was less silly goofy than my other videos, but I still hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. Please feel free to leave more movie suggestions in the comments for me to cover, and don't forget to keep it creepy. But not too creepy, not as creepy as Night Stalker. His breath smelled like ass.